All right, come on in, everybody. Welcome back to the Holler. TNHoller.com is where you can find us at the TN Holler on Twitter and Facebook and all that good stuff. We also have Hollers hollering all across the state. Thanks to your support, chip in a few bucks monthly. It helps. Make it $10 a month. Get a sweet hat. If you need a home, buying or selling, do it through Elisa Parker. And if you need a lawyer, Abby Rubenfeld is very supportive of us. All right, I just wanted to jump on here and process what happened last night with our followers, with you guys, hear what you all are thinking about it. Obviously, there's been some strong reactions to what happened. And, I have some thoughts that I just wanted to share and mainly hear from you all and how you're feeling about it. Because it's definitely a moment. So the general reaction right now is to President Biden's performance. I think we should start by saying, obviously, Trump lies as he breathes. Everything out of his mouth is a lie. I don't want to give him any credit for anything that really happened last night. He said all kinds of stuff that just isn't true, obviously accusing Dems of, supporting abortion after birth, taking all kinds of credit for economic statistics that he doesn't deserve, yada, yada, yada. We could go on forever talking about his lies. It's really hard to counter his lies. And when President Biden was asked about his performance last night, he said it's hard to debate a liar. He's not wrong about that. He's not wrong about that. But also, coming into this debate, Biden had some pretty ugly poll numbers, if you believe in that kind of stuff. Obviously, there were some questions about his age, which are fair. Trump's old too. But, that's been the narrative about Biden. So this was his sort of chance to refute and poke holes in that. And it became pretty clear right away that, that narrative wasn't going to go away. And in fact, his answers reinforced that narrative, let's just say. And obviously, it's fair to say, well, this is just one debate and, this isn't time to panic. And, that's all fair. That's all fair. But from where I'm sitting, everybody in the anti-Trump coalition, if you think Trump's a liar, if you think he's a criminal, if you think he's an insurrectionist, if you think he's terrible for democracy, if you think he wants to be a dictator, if you think he's bad for this country, then the only thing that matters is how do you keep him out of office? And the only question that people should be asking themselves today is what is the best path to keeping Trump out of office? Not, how do we not hurt Biden's feelings here? Not, anything else besides that. And working backwards from that, I think the question that I'm asking myself today is, what do you think Trump wants to see happen now? Do you think Trump wants to see Biden stay in? Or do you think Trump wants to see Biden step out and make room for somebody else? Now, I don't profess to know the answer to that, but I do think that's the right question. And I also don't profess to know if it's too late or not, because people are asking, well, is it too late? Maybe it is. I don't actually know. But if it's not too late, now is the moment that people need to be having this discussion. And it's fair to have the discussion. That much I know. We mentioned this online last night and got a lot of blowback. I mean, we got ratioed in a bunch of the tweets where we just posed the question. I mean, I'm not answering the question. I'm not professing to know the answer to the question. But I do know that it's important to at least have this conversation. And as Ron Filipkowski, said, he says, the difference between the two parties, one is capable of an honest and reflective assessment. The other is only capable of this glowing cultish nonsense from Stephen Miller every time. And he's right about that. So, the difference between the two parties needs to be that there can be some introspection, that there can be a conversation about what needs to happen next. And the conversations were happening on CNN, MSNBC last night. This idea of a brokered convention came up, which I don't really know how that works. I'm going to be at the convention covering it for the Holler this year. Might actually end up being a more intense and exciting time than I even realized. But I do know that this is the time to have that conversation. So I wanted to come on here and have it with you all. And so let's go through some of your comments. Jason Smith says, vote blue, no Trump ever again in office, all down the ballots. See, what I'd say to this is like, I don't think anybody's disagreeing with you there. The question is, what's the best way to do that? And is it, you're going to have a nominee, but should it be Biden at this point? Like, what did your gut tell you when you watched that last night? And as Grant says here, I'm very worried. As much as you and I don't want to give him credit, Trump won with his base, and I worry won with a good amount of undecided. Grant's a young, smart guy here in Tennessee, value his opinion, and I think it's worth listening to. Caleb says CNN gave lies the same credibility as fact because they never call out the lies terrible. This is a point that I think is inarguable. Bash and Tapper didn't push back at all on Trump's lies last night. They just kind of left them to say whatever they wanted to say. And I think there's an argument to be made that that was pretty irresponsible. There are ways to moderate debates where when you hear lies, you can push back on them. Go look at Kyle Clark and the way that he moderated the debate in Colorado where Boebert was lying and he pushed back on her. I'm going to be moderating a forum in Murray County next week, and I'm certainly going to push back if I hear some blatant lies. I think that's your responsibility. So I completely agree with Caleb here. Shelley says, I think for the good of the country, he should let someone else run. You can't undo what happened last night. And you look, and that's Shelley resists. So obviously, you know that Shelley is somebody who's coming from a pro-Biden position. And again, I think this is something that needs to be discussed. I don't know how it even would happen, honestly. But I think one thing that I feel in my gut, and one thing that Tim Miller wrote about in the Bulwark today, is it's really Biden. It's his decision. Like, there's nobody else that can make this decision for him. This is up to him. And, there's an argument to be made that the patriotic thing to do is to step down. And, if we're being honest, this is a conversation that a lot of people were having even before this. It was just quieter. This wasn't being talked about publicly. This wasn't on, the national platforms, but now here it is. And, when we look back on what happened last night, are we going to be saying, if Trump wins, we're going to be saying, oh, that was the night Biden lost. But if Biden steps aside and this is the moment that happened and whoever steps in beats Trump, then last night could end up being the greatest night possible. So, or maybe Biden goes on to win and it's no big deal. But, what happens next is going to color last night's moment in history in a pretty real way. Carol says she doesn't think Biden did as bad as he's being portrayed by the media. I mean, I was sitting there watching with my daughter who's 8 years old, and she was sitting there going like, what's wrong with him? So, and he had that moment where he lost his train of thought and said, we defeated Medicare or something like that. We beat Medicare when he was talking about COVID. I mean, he had some senior moments. He was stammering, and now you could say, okay, he had a stutter all his life, and that's true. That's fair. That's true. But I don't think that's everything that happened last night. I think we saw two older men, one of which was having trouble getting coherent sentences out, and the other who was getting coherent lies out. And, personally, I know who I would still support in that scenario. But when we're talking about an election that's going to be won on the margins where there's so little room for error, now you have this debate that is going to resonate for a long time. And so do you ignore it? Is it the just an off night or an off ramp? And I think that's the question. And that's what we posed today in our email that we blast out. You should go to tnholler.com to check out our emails. That's our email that we just sent out. And that's why I wanted to come on here and hear from you guys about what you think it is. It was reported too that Biden had a cold. I mean, yes, but that was reported late. That was reported after this was going off the rails. And so, I don't know that we can just chalk it up to that. Grant says if your daughter's picking up on it, voters will see it easily. Jason says off night, it happens. Miss Terry says it reminded me when I have a bad cold. So, yeah, I guess we can chalk it up to that, but we don't want to put our heads in the sand about what happened. To step down means Trump wins. Excuse me. Well, that's the question. That's the question. I don't know. You believe it, but is that real? Like, I think you could also say to not step down means Trump wins. You could say, well, Biden loses the incumbency factor, and you're right about that. People are saying that on Twitter, and yes, like 90% of incumbents have won. So maybe that's the Trump card, so to speak, for lack of a better term. But I think that's one data point. I think you have to look at all of the data points, and you have to look at, he was losing support with young people. And again, I think there's a way to paint that this could be an opportunity, not for Biden, but for beating Trump. Those are not the same things. Beating Trump is what matters if you're a Democrat and someone who, in my opinion, cares about democracy in this country. And there are Republicans who are coming out and saying that they support Biden, they endorse Biden, and what they're really endorsing is not Trump. When people say, okay, well, there's no way Biden got 80 million votes last time. No, but anti-Trump got 80 million votes. That's what happened. And, Biden turned out to, be a president that economically speaking, did a lot of pretty progressive things that I think even progressives supported. I think there are some things that people take issue with. His handling of the Gaza situation is one thing that is obviously a drag on his numbers with young people, and something that is still going on. But, what would a new candidate look like? Like, let's say, I mean, just throwing out names, Newsom, Whitmer, Kamala, like, if this person steps in and can run on Biden's economic record as a Democrat, that what the Democrats have done economically without the baggage of Gaza, without him being as old as he is, without this performance last night, like, is that potentially a better case to make to the people to keep Trump out of office? And again, I am not professing to know the answer to that, but I do believe, yes, Kamala Harris, absolutely. She would be first in line, probably. She was good last night. She came on and got Biden's back, which is what should do, and what Newsom should do. Fetterman's out there doing it. Like, this is what these people should do. But it is also fair to be posing the question of whether or not he is the right man for the job at this point. It is just fair to do that. And a lot of the pundits are doing that. We're seeing that on the New York Times right now. We're seeing it with Christoph and Friedman and all the usual suspects. They are doing this right now, having this debate. And, I think it's a fair one to say. Newsom, Whitmer, Kamala, Shapiro would all be better. There will not be a nominee. Get out and volunteer for any candidate. We need to defeat Republicans all the way down the ballot. I mean, Letta is pointing out something that is worth saying here, so I appreciate it. At the end of the day, down ballot matters, and all of these candidates need your help. So, like, anybody that was thinking about supporting and doing the work should still be getting out to do the work. Your first part, there will not be another nominee. I don't know if that's true. Like, there's enough dialogue about this right now that it's gonna reach Biden's ears, and he can make a decision not to run. Like, that is a thing that he can do. So I don't know what happens next if he does that, and I don't know if that's the right thing for him to do, but it is a thing that he can do. And then there's a thing called a brokered convention, which my understanding is at the convention, something would happen and potentially there would be another nominee. So it's possible. I just don't know. You might be right that it would never happen and he would never do it. But I think the question that we need to be asking ourselves is, what is the right thing to do for the country? That's the question. Not don't hurt the man's feelings, he's a hero, not any of that. It should not be about Biden. It should be about the country, our children, our future, and keeping Trump out of office. If you believe, as I do, that he is a corrupt liar who wants to be a dictator and would be very bad for this country to have for another 4 years and the world, honestly. So working back from that, what is the answer? Oh, I see Lisa Quigley's on here. Value her opinion greatly. Wait, I see the number 3. Was there a 1 and a 2? I got to go back now. All right. My son was in Manhattan watching his young peers crying, laughing about Biden. They feel betrayed and angry. He's worried our solid blue states in the Electoral College will now be in jeopardy. Conventions are designed to deal with problems like this. And finally, she says, we have the best chance to protect against autocracy by shoring up the U.S. House. Now, Lisa Quigley was Jim Cooper's chief of staff. She has spent a lot of time in Washington. That is an educated opinion right there. And if she is on here saying that, that's something that people need to listen to, in my opinion. Conventions are designed to deal with problems like this, from Lisa Quigley, Jim Cooper's former chief of staff, who is a very sharp political mind, is on here right now typing this out and saying this. That's a big deal to me. It should be a big deal to you, in my opinion. That's something that if she's saying it's possible, then it's possible. Period. It is possible. So it may not happen, but it's clearly possible if Lisa Quigley is on here telling us that that's possible. There is too much money invested in the Biden-Harris ticket to change now. I don't know if I agree with that. And I think that's probably not the way to be looking at this. Many of our issues have been compounded by elderly politicians refusing to give up power. It's a problem. I think John is absolutely right about that. Deb's ability to fundraise over the next few days will drive any decision to get a new nominee. That's probably true. I mean, ultimately, this is probably going to come down to money. Beth says he needs to do a press conference. Right. Like if he were to come out and stand in front of cameras and, fire off answers and be on it, that would help. But maybe they worry that it would just make it worse. I mean, last night was bad. Like, we can't sugarcoat that. Last night was not good. It looked like a guy who couldn't handle the moment. And, he was not there the way he needed to be. And I don't take any pleasure or joy in saying that. It's just something that's true. And, we have to acknowledge that. And so, as Mark Cuban said here, and I agree with this, let me find the Mark Cuban quote. He said, can the Democrats find a new candidate that has some combination of brains, personality, and popularity? If not, I still vote feeble, policy literate, and capable of answering a question over vigorous, unethical, and unable to speak the truth. Now, I agree with Mark there, but is that a great case to be out there making to the people? I just don't think that's going to play too well on in the ads and in the discourse. We take feeble over liar. We should be celebrating the candidate, and Trump should be easy to beat. This guy is an insurrectionist who lies and is a criminal and openly wants to be a dictator. I mean, this is somebody that you should be able to beat, and all of this is a drag on Biden and in turn our country. And so I think we have to have this conversation. I just really, really think we have to have it. And again, I don't take any pleasure in saying that. I've thought it for a while, if I'm being honest. I've been among the people who thought it for a while and just wasn't saying it. And now here's this moment where it feels like it would be a disservice to the country not to at least say it. And look, we'll be stronger at the end, generally speaking, as a country for it. If, okay, we have the conversation, everybody says, you know what, Joe's the man for the job. That's a stronger conversation than not having it because we're afraid to have it. And it's also a stronger conversation than saying, well, he's who we got. He's not going anywhere. To say, okay, he's just not going to go anywhere because no matter if the pressure is too great, he's not going to go anywhere. Well, what you're basically saying is you don't think Joe Biden would do what's right for the country. If you think that, if he thinks this is what's right for the country, I kind of think he would do the right thing. I do. If he thinks he's the best chance to beat Trump still, if he really believes that, then yeah, he'll stay. But to say, oh, I don't think he's going anywhere no matter what, I think that's not giving him enough credit, honestly. And I do think the man's a patriot. I do think the guy would do what's best for. I don't think he's this, Trumpian me guy who, won't go anywhere because he just is too selfish. I don't believe that about him. And I'm not even necessarily like a Biden guy through and through. I wasn't vocally for him in the primary in 2020, if I'm being honest, But I do believe the man's a patriot. And so I think if the right people were to have the right conversations with him and at least give him the right information about the way people are feeling and the way this has gone, then yeah, I think he would make the right decision for the country. So I think it's important that we're out here having these conversations because the only way it's ever going to get to that point with him is if people are saying this stuff on CNN, not here, but on CNN, on MSNBC. And yeah, here. I mean, I think, we all have our paddle in the river. We all have to do our part, however small. I mean, that's how this works. So, you say Joe is the man for the job. Okay. That's your opinion. Other than Kamala, you people. I mean, I met her. I think she's sharp, and I think she would be on it. But some people seem to have an issue with her. Uh, Madison County Commissioner says last night was not a good look. Let's see, what else you guys have to say before I head out here. I appreciate you guys being on here doing this with me because this felt like something that I wanted to do, and I was honestly a little nervous about doing it. But I'm glad that we're doing it. Another conversation. Where does Democratic Party stand on the Israel-Palestine conflict? When do we say enough is enough? You're right about that. Frida says primaries matter. The Dems had a large quality field in 2020. We chose Biden. Democrats' feelings are valid about the debate last night. I mean, I think all of that is fair. Take each of those little sentences, and it's all true. I mean, look, we chose Biden. Like, yes, Dems primaries matter. Dems chose Biden. That was then. We're in the moment that we're in now. Democrats' feelings are valid about the debate. I mean, that was then. This is now. This is now. Uh, Thornton says if democracy is truly on the line, which it is, we need a vocal champion who can rapidly recall and refute lies. Yeah, I mean, yes. And I think we were all hoping that Biden could do that last night. And I think we saw that he kind of couldn't. And Tapper and Dana Bash did not either. And so what you ended up with was, the ideal situation for Trump where he could just spew his stuff while Biden couldn't really handle the pushback. And, that's it. It's a monologue. I mean, I don't know how to have a conversation without it being a monologue, without you guys talking. I'm trying to talk to the comments here. I mean, yes, it's a monologue. That's what this ends up being when I have a podcast where I don't have a guest. So I will try to have a guest next time, but I'm trying to talk to your comments and thanks for being on today. Need to go watch airplanes now. Okay. Go watch your airplanes. No fact checking, says Morgan County Dems. That's true. There were no fact checking, and I refuse to accept that it was impossible for them to do it. I mean, they could do it. There were some whoppers there. When he says Dems support abortion after birth, that's a whopper. That cannot stand because people actually believe that out there, and it's nonsense. Remember, Trump put in a Muslim ban first thing. Yes, I mean, Grant's bringing up Gaza. I have my feelings about that. And obviously I disagree with a lot of what Biden has done there. But, would Trump be better? I know that's not an easy case to make to people who are seeing the images coming out of there right now, but I don't think Trump would be better. I think Trump would, be a green light for Netanyahu even more so. So yes, I agree. I think that's fair. But I do think this Gaza situation is a drag on Biden's numbers. And, were he to step aside and let someone else in, they would come in without that baggage, and that would be an important part of the equation. Then, I mean, that's a plus in the column for stepping aside. So again, if Lisa Quigley is on here saying the conventions are for this, then it's possible. Mike says Biden is the man for the job. Just because he isn't bombastic on TV doesn't mean he can't do the job. Okay, that is your feeling, and I agree kind of that it doesn't mean he can't do the job. I agree with that. I think the question is, will America agree with that? The thing we're not trying to figure out, can Biden do the job here? We're trying to figure out, how do you keep Trump out of office because he is terrible, and working backwards from that. So, it doesn't necessarily mean he can't do the job, but does it mean he can't do the job of beating Trump? So, do you have to replace Biden for the good of the country? I think that is the question. I don't profess to have the answer, but I do profess to believe and know that that is the question. That is the only question. And it is a fair question to be asking right now. And so I appreciate you being on here. Appreciate you having this conversation slash monologue with me. Keep following the holler, and I will see you next time.